views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Thank you all for attending our annual Irish Heritage Luncheon honoring 6 distinguished honorees. They are Chief Terrence Monahan, New York City Police Department Chief of Department, Noreen Lydon O'Donoghue, Director of Marketing and Public Relations of JPJ O'Donoghue Contracting. Of course, our invocator, Michael P. McNerney, President of Country Club Civic Association. Martin Galvin, New York State Chairman of Freedom for All Ireland. Kevin Alter, Senior Vice President of Dogert Management Corp. Michael Murphy, New York City Transit Maintenance Supervisor. You will hear more about our honorees in the program. Be sure to pick up a copy of the 2018 Bronx Business Directory and Resource Guide and a copy of our monthly newsletter. The Bronx Chamber of Commerce is an excellent platform to grow your business, company, or organization. If you're not a certified MWBE or need to be recertified, please speak to Phil Cardone for more information. I encourage each of you to network and share your business cards. If you're not a member of the Bronx Chamber, join today and save $100. Speak to Sashay Rivera to join. You never know where your next big deal is going to come from. At this time, I'd like to bring up Jerry to talk a little bit about our Women of Distinction event.
Welcome. I'm so happy to see so many of you here, and no one has to go back to work, right? Right. Okay, I'm not going back to work. Anyway, on your tables, you see these flyers for the Women of Distinction Luncheon. The Bronx Chamber holds many, many events, but this is a really nice one that we're going to have next Friday. It is our annual tribute to women, and we honor prominent Bronx women, and we give scholarships to young Bronx girls who are deserving of a scholarship but who have some financial need. We have a keynote speaker that I'm especially excited about, Liz Abzug, the daughter of Bella Abzug. And those of you who are too young to know who Bella Abzug is, Google her right now. She was a key figure in the women's movement in the 70s, and her daughter Liz is carrying on her great work with the Bella Abzug Leadership Institute, and we're so excited she's going to be our keynote speaker. So we still have some seats after the program. If you have questions about the luncheon, please see me, or make sure you take a flyer, but I hope to see some of you there. So thank you and enjoy the luncheon. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to say a special thank you to our sponsor today. That's Country Bank. Thank you very much, Carolyn, for sponsoring this annual event. You're the best. Thank you. And this year is their 30th anniversary, so congratulations. At this time, I take great pleasure in introducing our chairman of the board, Mr. Joe Kelleher.
Thank you, Nunzio. First of all, I just want to acknowledge, isn't it great to have the NYPD here in force right here at this event today? I was so excited, being an Irish guy, knowing I'm coming to the Ramblin' House. I got up this morning, put the green tie on, and it feels so good, and I know I'm going to see Bob here, Bob Nolan. So the two of us together, we could probably talk for hours because we're two Irish guys. We tell long stories. So I'm not going to do that. But I would like to acknowledge some people. So all of the board of directors and our executive board who are in the house, would you please stand and be acknowledged? Our Chamber of Commerce board of directors, John Palazzi, Jerry, Barry, thank you for all you do. I also like to acknowledge Nunzio Del Greco and his staff. Great job. He's an honorary Irishman today. Look, I like to talk about what's going on in the Bronx, but we have a lot of honorees, so I'm not going to do that. But I will tell you this. It's an exciting time for the Bronx. Economic development has never been stronger here. I think the next 10 to 15 years are going to be absolutely unbelievable. And it's all going to be done because of the members of the Bronx Chamber of Commerce that are here today. And we'll have more jobs, and we'll have more people visiting our borough, more hotels going up, more residential housing, ferry services. I can go on and on. There's just so much going on, and we'll all benefit from it. So I'm really proud to be part of the Chamber of Commerce and look forward to see all the good things that are going to happen, in the future. I'd like to acknowledge also that Mark Jonai, Ted Pryor is here from Mark Jonai's office. Thanks, Ted. And of course, another honorary Irishman for Congressman Crowley's office, who we all know, Tommy Messina. Oh, Messina. And they'll be giving some citations at the end of the program, as always. Thank you, guys. And I'd like to acknowledge Mark Jaffe, who's here from the New York City Chamber of Commerce. Is he still in the house? All right, well, he was here earlier. Oh, there he is. Okay, good to see you. I get the pleasure of at least starting to introduce the first honorees, or the people who would be presenting to them. And most of you know Joe Ramos. Joe calls me and he talks to me for like a half hour. You know how Joe is. And he was the Deputy Commissioner of Corrections for many years. And he's been a very, very close friend of mine. I love Joe so much. And he's having some health problems right now, so he couldn't be here today. Or else you would have had to listen to at least a 20-minute introductory speech, I guarantee you. So we don't have to do that. But I did have a couple of notes of things that I just want to just throw out there about Chief Terrence Monahan, who's going to be our first honoree. Born in the Bronx, St. Raymond's High School, Fordham University. His father and his grandfather were both NYPD police officers in, I believe, the 43rd Precinct. He has been the commander, I think, in most of the precincts in the Bronx over his tenure. He's now the chief of the department it's the highest ranking officer for the New York City Police Department, and he has developed some programs which I think a lot of you know, but I'm gonna let the chief talk about that. I don't wanna steal his thunder. But my last thing I'd like to say is I really feel that they had to get somebody from, not that it wasn't working well, but the fact they have someone whose Bronx is now running the city of New York. They were looking for the best when they were looking for the chief. So we're really honored, Chief, that you're here today. And with that, I'd like to bring up Chief McEwen, who's a good friend, to introduce Chief Monahan.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Larry McEwen. I'm happy and proud to be the Commanding Officer of Patrol Borough Bronx. I'd like to thank Nunzio and Phil, everyone, for having us here today. I have the pleasure of introducing my chief, Chief Terrence Monahan. There is only one chief of department, by the way. There's lots of chiefs with 2 stars, 1 star, 3 stars. There is only one chief of department. And it's a very coveted and very important position. This person is in charge of everything operational, all the uniformed members of the NYPD. It's a very, very important job. And that's our Chief Terrence Monahan. Chief Terrence Monahan joined the NYPD in January 1982 on patrol in the 41st Precinct in the South Bronx. He served in the 34th Manhattan North, 41st, 44th, 46th, 48th, 52nd, all Bronx commands. Bronx Narcotics Borough Manhattan North, Patrol Borough Manhattan North. He was promoted to sergeant in 1987, lieutenant in 89, captain in 92, deputy inspector in 95, inspector in 98, deputy chief 03, assistant chief in 14, then he became our chief of patrol, another high-profile position, in September 16. He's commanded the 34th, 46th, and 48th Narcotics Borough Manhattan North, and he was the executive officer of the 34th. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Liberal Arts from Fordham. Chief of Department Monahan has been married to his wife, Diane, for 30 years, and they have 3 children, James, Danny, and Deborah. His long family history with the NYPD includes his grandfather, retired police officer John Bowtich, appointed in 1927. His father, retired police officer Terrence Monahan Sr., appointed in 1946. His brother, retired detective Michael Monahan, appointed in 73. And his sister, Denise Monahan, a police administrative aide, appointed in 2016. As you can see, this is an Irish police family, one of a very long line of proud and traditional Irish police families. On a personal note, I've had the pleasure to work with my chief in the Bronx before he took over as the chief patrol and chief of department. And we are very fortunate to have someone with his experience to be in this very important position. Obviously, you see from what I read, all the accomplishments, all the assignments. He's been on the front lines. He hasn't been in an office somewhere in one PP for years and years. He's been out on the streets, in command, in charge, and he knows what to do. And we are very fortunate to have him at the helm of our department. Along with him being a part of a family with a proud tradition in the police department, Chief Monahan is also very proud of his Irish heritage. I know that from working with him. For this and his many years of dedicated service, it is very fitting that he is receiving the 2018 Irish Heritage Award from the Bronx Chamber of Commerce. I give you Chief Terrence Monahan.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I don't know what to say after that long introduction, 2 different introductions. Nunzio, thank you. Joe, thank you very much. Bob Nolan. Don't know, like a year and a half ago, I made Chief of Patrol. 2 days after I make Chief of Patrol, I'm getting an email from Bob to be honored for the Hibernians. So it was an honor to go, and I think we're going to do this on a yearly event back here somewhere in the Bronx. Anytime I get a chance to come back into the Bronx, this is my homeland. This is where I love. This is where I grew up. It is great to come back here. It's great to come to the Rambling House. I may have spent a St. Patty's Day or 2 off duty back in this place. And there's nothing like a bar that you can walk by and look at nothing but bottles of Jameson all through. So you kind of know where we are here. Listen, the Bronx Chamber of Commerce, great organization, done great things for this borough, did a little research, 120 years in existence. Bronx Chamber is in existence before the Yankees had Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. It shows, and you kind of seen the progression, how this borough has come from years back to where it is now. Again, I grew up in the Bronx. I know what it was like here in the 80s and 90s, and it's a completely different city than it was back then. Back in just as far back as 1990, you're talking about a city had 2,245 homicides, over 5,300 different shooting incidents within the city. You look at it now, take a look at what 2017 was. 292 homicides, 789 shooting incidents. Thank you. That deserves a round of applause. It's simply amazing where it's come, where it's going. This isn't something that the police do by itself. It's done in coordination with the communities, with the chamber. As the city gets safer, commerce gets better, economic growth happens. We do this together. As it's safer, people are making money, businesses come back in here and invest in the borough. That's why this is turning around. If you look at the Bronx, even of itself, last year, I think, Larry, a 26% reduction in homicides in the borough of the Bronx last year. Continuing in a crime reduction this year, 9% down in crime this year. The Bronx isn't just coming back, the Bronx is back. Probably the best borough. I'm not allowed to say that in other places. But a lot of what's happened, it doesn't happen without its sacrifices, and the Bronx has seen it more than anyone over the last 18 months. We had Sergeant Paul Tizzulo back in November of 16, was shot and killed. July of last year, we had Minnesota's Familiar, shot and killed. I mean, just today, if we go back historically, it was the 24th anniversary that Sean McDonald was shot and killed in the 4-4 precinct. Where we move forward as a city doesn't happen without what these heroes did in the past, and it's someone that we will always remember as a department. We ask people in the communities to always remember who these people are and what they've done. There's a gym that was dedicated today in the 4-4 precinct. Beautiful mural going across the wall in memory of Sean McDonald. It is a great memory. It's something for the kids in the neighborhood. When they come in, they look at the gym, they walk in, and they remember. They remember the sacrifices that some people had to make to get us to where we are. We've gotten this safe, but we ain't done. This is something we have to continue to do. We have to continue to drive down crime. We have to continue to focus on that small percentage of people within the communities that cause the violence, that cause the disruption, that cause all the problems. We have put all our investigative resources under one chief, so now they have narcotics, gang, everyone working directly for them so they can get the resources, working together, hand in hand with the uniformed men and women you see here. Because nothing that happens here gets done by me down in headquarters. It gets done by the guy standing over there in the blue uniform. They're the ones out there every single day making a difference, making these streets safer. It's great that they're in here having a cup of coffee, having some food, because that's what it's about. That's what neighborhood policing is all about. It is the concept of getting the cops in the communities getting to know one another on a one-to-one basis, where our cops get to know that 99% of the community that does everything right, that wants them, that supports them. And together we go against that 1% that causes the problems out on the street. Neighborhood policing gives ownership to those cops. I'm sitting in headquarters. I don't know what's most important to happen on the corner of Katona Avenue over here. But that cop that's out here every day, he knows. My job is to give him the discretion and the ability to use his mind, to make decisions, working in conjunction with the communities, getting to know the people, to work on solutions together to make those neighborhoods safer. That's what neighborhood policing is all about in a nutshell. I won't go into all the things about it, but it's about respect and trust. We want our cops to respect the communities that they go out to work in, and we want the communities to trust them. The only way we're going to get that to happen is as a hierarchy, we respect and trust our cops. So that's kind of the whole message of neighborhood policing in a nutshell. Get to know them, get to deal with these cops on a regular basis. Neighborhood policing is going to be throughout the Bronx by July. I believe the 5-0 precinct goes online in April, and in July the 4-5, and now the entire Bronx will be working under the operation of neighborhood policing. We are also getting our transit units are going to work under neighborhood policing. This took a little while to try and figure out how to do this, but the concept, if anyone here takes a train, you take the same train every single day. You're probably on that train the same time every day. We want to keep that same cop in those stations. So you actually get to know who's the cop that's supposed to be in that area, get to know them. That's going to start rolling out in April. Our cops are running meetings. Each and every one of them now are running what we're calling build the block meetings. The meeting is run by the cop. It's not run by the bosses. We don't let the bosses show up. This is a cop, exactly. You want to be able to have one-to-one interaction with the cops that are on your street. They run the meeting. If you go into your neighborhood, go onto the site. It's called buildtheblock.nyc. You put your address in, it's going to tell you when the meeting in your neighborhood is taking place, who the cop is that covers your neighborhood. And they're the ones that are going to be there, and that's that one-on-one conversation you could have. I encourage you to go to it, get to know the cops that have your neighborhood. We do a meeting once a quarter in each and every of the neighborhoods. This is how we get better. It's a shared responsibility. Police departments don't do it alone. Communities don't do it alone. Businesses can't do it alone. We do it together as a group. So I encourage you to do this. Thank you for having me here today. To the rest of my honorees, congratulations. St. Patty's Day a couple of days later. Hopefully I can come back out of uniform and try that Jameson.
And we'll ask all of the honorees to join us at the end of the program for one group picture up here together. It's now my pleasure to introduce a person who will introduce our next honoree. I know her well as a former council member from the West Bronx. Nobody worked harder in the city council for the betterment of the Bronx and New York City than our person who's going to introduce Ms. O'Donoghue. She's a respected member, former member of the city council. She chaired the land use committee with great distinction. She knew what was going on in the city, and she's helped this borough of the Bronx in more ways than you would ever know. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce our dear friend, June Island.
Bob Nolan and I have shared many lecterns together and many microphones together. So thank you so much. He was with the borough president's office, no matter who the borough president was, and we certainly partnered on so many issues. So I have the great honor of introducing not just a great Woodlawnian and a great Bronxite, but such a good friend, Noreen O'Donoghue. There's nobody that more represents the spirit and the commitment to the Woodlawn area and to the Bronx than Noreen and her husband, Pat. Years ago, right after they came over, they had great confidence in the Bronx, and they established a contracting business right here on Katona Avenue, and they were blessed. They grew so much that they had to find big space downtown. Well, guess what? They found big space back in the Bronx, and Pat and Noreen are back here in our beautiful borough, and I'm so pleased because that means jobs. I'd like to talk about how I best knew Noreen. Well, actually, the way I best knew her was going to her bakeries. Anybody remember the bakeries on Katona Avenue that Noreen had? They were fabulous, just great. She is the founding member of the Emerald Isle Immigration Center in the Bronx. There was no place for young people coming over here for a better life back in the day to come to get help, to get acclimated. Came without jobs, they came without housing, some of them needed more schooling, and they settled here where many of their forebears had been before. There was no center and no coordinated effort to help them. Well, Noreen founded the Emerald Isle Center here in the Bronx, and I was fortunate enough to partner with a guy named Walter McCaffrey, who founded the same kind of center in Queens. And together we worked with Noreen, and we worked with the budget departments, and we got funding, but the kind of work that they did then and they do now was grassroots. Their services hit the streets, so to speak. And as I said, kids and even middle-aged people needed jobs. Well, you know where they got jobs? They got the late shift at the local hospitals. Now, they didn't complain, but the 12 to 8 shift, and you're a woman, and you have to get home, and you can't afford a taxi, there weren't enough buses. There weren't any buses to serve the Woodlawn area. Well, the Immigration Center, with some help from myself, who I then been involved in city government for quite a while, got them the transportation. Those are the kinds of issues that still go on. But fast forward to today, and some of the people who had been here for a long time, some of the Irish people, and by the way, the center does not today just serve Irish immigrants. They serve immigrants that come and ask for help. But fast forward, they're now doing Meals on Wheels, so that tells you that the community in some respects has grown older. We still get young people coming here, but the same center has the same commitment. And without somebody like Noreen having been the starter and the impetus for it, and she is still active today, she's still on the board, she commits time, effort, and imagination to serve people, I think has always been her touchstone. So I'd like to ask my friend, a person that I have so much respect for and love for, to please come up now. It's been a long road to hoe. That's for sure. Okay.
All for notes, so we will be short and brief. Firstly, I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for considering me worthy of this recognition today. Thank you most sincerely. Joe, thank you. I really appreciate it. I would like to congratulate my fellow honorees. We have Terrence, Michael, Martin, Kevin, Brian, and of course my good friends from Country Bank who are actually sponsoring this today. And I know I don't need to give you another shout, but Anita and Irene, you always support all things Irish, and we truly appreciate that very much. Now, I would like to represent, well, of course, Joan told you all about the Emerald Isle. I couldn't have done better, Joan. Excellent, excellent. So we're going to, cut that a little bit short, except that I would like to introduce two fellow members of the Board of Directors, my good friend, wonderful friend, and friend to everybody in the Bronx County, Jim Lombard. He is on the board with me. And the proprietor of this wonderful establishment, Joe Carty. They have been wonderful to the association, I must say. And of course, there is no business that don't benefit from having some great people. GPJ O'Donoghue is obviously around for a while. We were around in the Bronx for over 30-something odd years. And no matter how you build a business, trust me, you have to have a great team to do that, and we are so blessed and fortunate to have that. And not alone just my grandson, who does, among other things, being in volunteer fireman in EMS, but he also works with us in the business, so he has a contribution to make. And of course, with last but no means least within O'Donoghue Contracting, Cassie Harris and our Chief Superintendent, Greg Graves. And a few of our seniors from the Emerald Isle Group, Maureen Monahan and Bridie Doonan. I am just overwhelmed when I look around me and I see so many great things happening in the borough of the Bronx. I came to live in the Bronx back when I was only 16, so that's a couple of years ago. I left for a little while, but came back. Because no matter what you do, there is funny. We always say, well, you're an Irish woman and you're a Bronx woman. Well, guess what? I'm both. An Irish woman and a Bronx woman. Because the Bronx has gone through such changes over the many years. And needless to say, you already covered it. Thank you very much. So that was excellent, because it's hard to describe to people how this borough has changed. And how, with the help of the Chamber of Commerce and our wonderful police department, I can't be partial now because I have a lot of family members who are cops and firemen. So with these, they're the cornerstone of the success of it, along with the community. It's a wonderfully diverse community. And I'm always in awe when I go to various events right by the Chamber or the Bronx Borough President, and to see how everybody, all ethnicity, represented. It's great. And this is the borough to be in. This is where I would like to be. And again, I will conclude in introducing you my better half of the last 49 years, my husband, Pat O'Donoghue. So, no more to say except that I would like you all to enjoy St. Patrick's Day. Have a good one. Take care.
I would like to recognize a couple of people who are here on their own political position, also representing elected officials. The Bronx Director representing New York City Controller Scott Stringer, Mariel Dela Cruz. Where's Mariel? Hi, Mariel. Thank you so much for coming. And also the Democratic State Committee member for the 80th Assembly District. He's also President of Division 3 of the Ancient Order of Hibernians, our friend Joe McManus. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the next honoree. The next honoree is somebody who actually I knew his dad before I knew him. His dad was a very active member in the Alton Avenue Association. I lived just south of that in Morris Park. But whenever I went to any of the events at Alton Avenue, Jim McInerney was always there. I was talking to Michael about that. in the sea of Italian Americans who ran Allerton, the Allerton Association, was Jim McInerney, and Michael was telling me that Dad ran the patrol. So he was just a wonderful, wonderful guy, gone too soon. We love him for all the work he did for Allerton. When you work for Allerton, you work for Chester, you work for Pelham Parkway, for Morris Park, all the areas and organizations in the 4-9 precinct. And I'm sure that Jim is looking down on his son and his wonderful family today as he's about to be honored by the Chamber of Commerce. Jim has a number of highlights that I'll read in his bio, or things I'll mention about his career. First and foremost, Jim is a Marine. As I learned, Michael, too many years of Jim, but not enough years of Jim. But as I learned several years ago, you're never an ex-Marine, you're always a Marine. So he was a member of the Marine Corps, and we're very, very appreciative of his service. After that, he became, as he said he wanted to do, the second most important thing for him, or probably number one now, is he became a New York City police officer. And we thank you for your service, Michael, for the people of the city of New York. As if that wasn't enough, he became president, and they didn't just ask him to join. He had a fight, he had a challenge, he had to take over. I know who he beat and defeated, and they were a very, very active group of people. But Mike brought new leadership, young blood, and young activity to the Country Club Civic Association, a group I've known since 1973. So we congratulate him on that. And then finally, he's a brother in Division III of the Ancient Order of Hibernians, and we appreciate his service there also. I want to especially congratulate him on marrying his high school sweetheart, his wife Patricia. Would you please stand? And she is here today. She's here today with their children, James and Maria. Please welcome honoree Michael McNerney. Okay, you got it.
Trying out the microphone. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. All right, everyone say, no, here comes the holy roller. All right, just because I read the invocation. Bob, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for including my father. My father was a tremendous mentor for me. Originally Washington Heights Irish, from 179 in St. Nicholas Avenue, when we had a lot of them. Them and the Inwood crowd didn't get along too well, but he loved his days in Washington Heights, and he moved here only to marry my mother, who was originally from Morris Park. Thank you, Nunzio, Phil, the entire Bronx Chamber of Commerce. I want to commend all of you for what you do for us, for business in the Bronx Borough Country Bank for sponsoring this event, and of course my friends and family for being here with us today. You can't go wrong without hosting an Irish luncheon, especially here in Woodlawn, and especially here at Rambling House. Woodlawn, as we all know, is kind of a mecca for the Irish and Irish Americans here in New York. Hey, Rick. Nice of you to show up, I see. I did Irish step dancing right down the street, Bob. You didn't mention that, my Bob. I kind of left that one out. But I did Irish step dancing right down the street. We had my son's communion party in this very room, so we definitely feel at home here today. Oh, you want me to? Yeah. All right. Sure. You made a mistake, by the way, Lindsay. You don't give an Irishman a microphone. I did lie when I kissed the bride stand. I'm really going to start singing or telling stories. So. But to be here, to be awarded not only for my recent accomplishments, but for also being of Irish heritage is a tremendous honor. My family, who's sitting at the table, could tell you I could talk about myself the whole time I'm up here, but I'd rather talk about some of my fellow honorees and a certain connection that I feel that I have to each and every one of them. After all, this is a networking event. That's what the Bronx Chamber of Commerce prides themselves in, and I hope by the end of today I get to know each and every one of you a little bit better. I'll start off with Mr. Martin Galvin. What we have in common is the fact that we're both AOH members. I'm simply a card-carrying member, when Martin is obviously a lot more involved as the New York State Chairman, Freedom of All Ireland. I brought with me here today to show Martin and anyone else who's interested. This is my grandfather's Black and Tan Medal. It was awarded to my grandfather, Michael McNerney, by the President of Ireland for his contributions in the Longford Volunteers for the fight for Irish independence. So, I also brought his initial passport from 1922, which is actually a British passport. It says he's a subject of Britain. And then I brought my grandmother's passport from 1924, which I believe was probably one of the very first passports to say Irish Free State on it. So feel free to come over to the table later on and check it out, because I think history is very important for us to all share. My Uncle Charlie's here also, so you could talk to him. He knows a lot more about it than I do. When my grandfather came here from Ireland, he had to feed the 5 mouths in their Washington Heights apartment, and he found a career employment, decades worth of employment with the New York City Transit, which makes me think of Mr. Brian Murphy, because he had his career with transit. So I feel like we have that certain thing in common. Mr. Kevin Alter, who I've never personally met, I've driven past your place of business almost every single day. This is my first time meeting you. I've known your son for years, Ray, who I just pointed out his tardiness. And Ray, how long have we known each other? 15 years at least? Yeah. We've been to each other's homes, and all I have to say to you is your son's a great guy, and if that's a reflection of you, you're a great guy. So congratulations. Noreen O'Donohue, your work with the Emerald Isle Immigration Center is much needed. But what I really want to point out is your construction company that has a tremendous reputation in the industry. My cousin Andrew, who's sitting at my table, was the president and CEO of his own audiovisual company. And he came here today, not for me, but for you. So congratulations. When I sent him the flyer, he said, "Oh, Noreen, I'm going to go." I said, "What about me? I guess you forgot about me." And obviously, last but not least, Chief Terrence Monahan. What a tremendous and unique opportunity is for someone like me to stand here shoulder to shoulder, side by side with his boss, even if just for a few hours this afternoon. When it comes to the spectrum of the chain of command of the NYPD, he's on one end, I'm on the other. Obviously, he's on top, I'm on the bottom, all right? So we have our obvious differences, but we share that same common Irish pride. We are both ferociously proud to call ourselves kids from the Bronx, and we've always wanted to be cops and wear the uniform that we wear with great pride for what we do for the people of the city of New York. So thank you, Chief, for this opportunity to be here alongside you. I want to thank, once again, all the honorees for just allowing me to be one of you on this great afternoon. We've all been blessed with this Irish DNA, which has given us tremendous ethics, values, and traditions. I want to just thank the Chamber one more time for this great honor. God bless America, the Irish, and all of you here today.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael McNerney. Now, our next honoree, honestly, if I really told you everything I knew about him, we'd be here for 3 hours. So I will not do that to you. I'll try to do the Bob Nolan 1-minute special, which is very, very difficult because I'm not sure where to start and where to end. But the first thing I'll tell you is that he's one of the foremost defense attorneys here in Bronx County. And if anybody has a problem with any legal matter, you want to go to this fellow because he's well known at the Bronx County Courthouse and will do a fine job defending you. Aside from that, he's an outstanding speaker. He's on call and has spoken in Ireland, he's spoken in Connecticut, he's spoken out in Suffolk County. He's gone around because people know he knows his Irish history, and he's not someone who knows his history, he's living Ireland, he's living the Bronx, he's living the United States as an American, and he is someone who well sought after on the dinner circuit and the breakfast and lunch circuit. He's also an active member of the Hibernians. He's the president of the Woodlawn and Wakefield, our most successful division here in Bronx County, and was appointed by the state president to be chair of Freedom for All Ireland. So if I go on any further, I'll be going into other details. I won't tell you, but it's in the bio that Martin, for a period of time, was banned from England. He was so effective in speaking in Ireland on behalf of a free state in Ireland that Great Britain basically wouldn't let him in the country. So that lets you know how effective he is as a speaker. It lets you know how effective he is and continues to be as an advocate for one Ireland, one country, 32 counties. It's my pleasure to introduce my dear friend and your honoree today, Martin Galvin.
Karja, thank you, and I want to thank the Bronx Chamber of Commerce. Bob did not mention the real reason he put me up for this. He left it out. I live about 6 doors down, and anytime he can get me on it here or involved with an event, he always says, by the way, can I park in your driveway that day? You see, he doesn't even deny it. He's nodding his head. Today, one of the great things about St. Patrick's Day, about the Bronx Chamber of Commerce, about everything that St. Patrick's Day means, and we were discussing it, just one of the people at my table had an article that was printed in the New York Times about it, is that we Irish have achieved great success, and we celebrate it, and we're proud of it. But it wasn't always easy. That when our ancestors, many of them, came to America, they found there was discrimination, both that they were Irish, that they were Catholic. They found that there were places you would apply for a job and there would be no Irish need apply. And they also felt that one of the reasons that they were coming here in great numbers, that they couldn't succeed as they would succeed, as we're in the Chamber of Commerce, a symbol of that success in America, is because without freedom, without independence in their own country, they would never be given the chance by the British to allow them to succeed. So in addition to all that success, how they succeeded politically, opened up places like the New York City Police Department or the Fire Department, where my father used to work, or other industries, or succeeded economically, there was also feelings by a great many of those immigrants about someday there would have to be independence back in Ireland. Someday there would have to be freedom for the people that they left behind, so that there wouldn't have to be people coming here because they were denied the opportunities that they could do so much with in America. Not too far away, there was recently at AOH a new division, Thomas Edis Division. It's actually a memorial, great Irish patriot Thomas Emmett, killed in 1803 in America, when there was no thought of the Irish freedom. There would be Emmett Monument commemoration because he made a speech. He didn't want any kind of memorial until Ireland took a place among the nations of the world. Last year, we celebrated the 150th anniversary of a guy named Thomas Kelly. He's down in Woodlawn Cemetery. He was there's a whole group of Fenians who fought in the American Civil War, who were patriots, who were honored, and many of them dedicated themselves going back to Ireland to try that one day there would be freedom there. The Irish flag was actually pioneered by somebody, an American Civil War fighting 69th hero, Thomas More, and it flew in America for years and years and was carried in the parade when it was not allowed in Ireland. And in fact, somebody just told me a story. There was actually a mayor who wouldn't let it fly from City Hall, and he didn't last too long. I don't know why, but that's part of our heritage for people who came here and wanted to support the right for freedom in Ireland. And because of them, as was mentioned, there was patriots, or predecessor, one of the honorees, talked about family members being involved in struggle for independence in 1916 or 1922. And I feel privileged to have been able to work for, as many Hibernians do, for Freedom for All Ireland. Just today, we're working on a letter for Congressman Crowley's office to support truth and justice for people whose family members, one of whom was a friend of mine, Liam Ryan, used to live in the Bronx on Review Place, was killed, can't get any justice, can't get any truth. You talk about Brexit, the British putting a border across Ireland that's going to be a disaster. Again, British influence because there's no full independence. So today, as we celebrate with pride our whole tradition, all the success that we have had in America as a community, I'm glad and I'm proud and I'm thankful to the Chamber of Commerce for recognizing me and for recognizing all that the Irish in America have done to help there to be freedom today for part of Ireland, for most of Ireland, and one day freedom for all of Ireland. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we have some truth-telling. The real reason why I didn't mention where I'm parking is because I've asked Martin about a dozen times if I could possibly park in his parking spot right next to his house. And this is the second time out of 12 times that Martin has said yes. So I want to thank you, Martin, for the second opportunity, because there's two less times I have to park and ride around and maybe not get a spot. But the more important thing is that Martin is hosting a post-event party at his house. It's only a half a block away, so see me later on. Martin will be thrilled to welcome all of you there, and we'll all spend the rest of the afternoon, if we can, partying at Martin's house. Thank you, Martin. With friends like me, Martin doesn't need any enemies at all. Now it's my honor and pleasure to turn the microphone over to a very, very dear friend, who's going to introduce somebody who I don't know, and then somebody else who I've known, Kevin Alter, since around 1980, when he was a young, dynamic organizer in the Ford and Bedford Association, and I was working for a borough president. And June will remember that when you met with the Clergy Coalition, they were really out for blood. They wanted 100% of your time to do everything that you possibly could do for them. And I don't blame them, because when I talk about the rebuilding of the Bronx, I always include the Clergy Coalition. Without their activist mentality in neighborhood after neighborhood in Bronx County, our borough would never have been rebuilt. So cutting into a little of her time, it's now my pleasure to introduce my dear friend, Jerry Shortino.
Thank you, Bob. It is my great pleasure to present our next honoree, Mr. Brian Murphy. Let's hear applause for Brian Murphy. Brian is the son of Irish immigrants, his dad from County Cork, and his mom, who's here, from Limerick. Do we have Limerick in the house? Yay. He grew up in a loving home filled with Irish music and dancing. His dad was a musician. His mom sewed kilts, I understand. And Brian played music here and in Ireland, as well as some step dancing. So if we bring a few drinks over to this table, can we see some step dancing later? Money? Okay, we'll show you money. And thank you, by the way, for not wearing a dress today. We really appreciate it, Brian. Brian loves Irish music, and he claims to know every Irish song, and he has them in his iPod pretty much. So anybody who wants to hear a good tune, go over and see Brian. He played Irish football, and he's still an avid fan. He is enjoying a well-deserved retirement from New York City Transit after 30 years of service. He was responsible for a lot of servicing, rebuilding of tracks, all that's in his bio. He even spent some time at Ground Zero. You know, people think of Ground Zero and all the work that was done there, and they think of the great work that the NYPD and FDNY did. But there were many, many other people who worked at Ground Zero, many other trades, and New York City Transit being one of them. So thank you for your service there, Brian. One of his projects with transit was rebuilding these stations, the new stations in the Bronx. So the next time you're in one of those beautifully rebuilt train stations, chances are Murph had a hand in that one. And if you really like it, that was one of his. When you're the son of an immigrant, you have a responsibility to pass on your heritage to your family. You have a responsibility to pass on the traditions of your homeland, because if you don't, those traditions end with you. And Brian and his wife Annie recognize that, and they have instilled a love for Ireland to their 3 children, Redmond, Tressa, and Kira, and taught them to be proud of their Irish heritage. Brian is a great and devoted friend to so many, and many of you have come out today. Thank you for coming out to support Brian. He's someone you can always count on, and if you need it, he'd give you the shirt off his back. And it's a large shirt, but it's not nearly as large as his heart, because this is a man who has a great heart. He's a wonderful guy. I'm lucky to be able to call him one of my friends, and I am so proud to recognize this great Irishman. Give a warm Bronx welcome to Brian Murphy.
And a song for my brother-in-law. Hi, how are you? Thank you for that, Jerry, and for all that you and John do for the Bronx. I would like to thank the Chamber and its members for this honor, but I would also like to thank my parents for the gift of America and our good fortune for growing up in the Bronx. I know most people think the United Nations is on the east side of Manhattan, but I know it's actually in the Bronx, on 199th Street, where we grew up. International issues were settled there with a large number of member nations present. Area businesses were also representative of the world population. I learned a hard work ethic in addition to what I learned from my parents from working in Drusen's German delicatessen. Murphy, the pots get just as clean in cold water as in hot water. Benny, the Italian vegetable man. Don't peel the onions until you weigh them. and Angela Butcher, who called everybody sweets, because that's what he wanted them to do. I worked for the Taylor to All of Us stars, Alexander's on Fordham Road. And many years later, I started a job in New York City Transit. But I left 30 years later to having a career. There's a difference between a career and a job, and I embraced that difference and strove to make the transit system better. Every time I felt that we were doing good work and making progress, I was knocked back to earth by the Independent Labor Review Board, also known as the public. Damn transit workers, get a real job. Thank you for that, and yes, I do recognize some of you here. I'll finish by thanking a lot of my ex-friends for coming today. My brothers, Dennis and Joe, my sister Helena, my brother-in-law Bob, my brother-in-law Michael. Also, I want to thank my children. And I'm going to forget Mom, sorry. Give away. Give us away. No singing now. I learned my love of singing from my mother. I also want to thank my children. Redmond, a police officer here in the Bronx. Tracy and Kira, who are both students at Maritime over in Throgs Neck. I have to give a special thank you to the love of my life, Annie O'Toole Murphy, who is an amazing oncology nurse and who makes us all better in so many ways. Thanks again to the Chamber of Commerce, and congratulations to my fellow honorees, and let's go Yanks. Thank you.
Good job, sir. Good job. Yeah, let's get them. Congrats, Brian. Okay, last but certainly not least, my good friend Kevin Alter. Kevin Alter's great-grandparents immigrated from County Kerry, but Kevin is a Bronx boy through and through. He and his childhood sweetheart, Dee Dee, have raised their two beautiful children, Ray and Kelly, right here in the Bronx, and they wouldn't have it any other way. Yeah, you should. I like to say that Kevin is the richest man I know. He's not rich in the sense of financial gain, although he does run a successful management company, Duggart Management, and he does pretty good for himself. But he's rich in the sense that he's surrounded by a loving family and many, many, many friends. These friends of Kevin's are not just acquaintances. If Kevin is your friend, he is your friend for life. He is still close with his childhood friends and every other friend he's made to present day. And he is the bond that keeps us all together and close and in touch. And that's something that's so rare, and it's wonderful. And I'm grateful to you for that, Kevin. He's the type of person who's there for you no matter what. The type of person to whom you can trust your most intimate secrets. And he usually keeps those secrets. He'll usually keep those secrets unless it's a silly secret. And then it might come out at an inopportune moment. Isn't that right, Maria? But for the most part, he's pretty good. So if you have a secret, you can tell Kevin. Kevin has been asked to be executor to so many wills that I think he's lost count. And that says to me a true testament to his character and to his integrity. Kevin loves life, and he lives it to the fullest, and he is the ultimate optimist. When a snowstorm is coming and everyone's freaking out and buying milk and complaining, Kevin smiles. He just makes sure he has enough firewood and beer to ride out the storm, and he looks forward to enjoying a nice, relaxing day with some snow. Kevin's door is always open, and that's because his friends are always welcome to come in. And I think he truly exemplifies the Irish spirit of 1,000 welcomes. Who has it better than you, Kevin? Nobody. Please welcome my very good friend, Kevin Alter.
Well, first, I'd like to thank my friends and family for coming. It looks like we filled up, between us and Murph, 3 tables. I'd also like to thank the Chamber for this honor. Being the chief of the department this year, I'd like to point out that my dad was a first-grade detective in 4-6 Precinct. My mom worked in the Catholic school system. I grew up in the Bronx. I raised my family in the Bronx. I have a business in the Bronx, and I still live in the Bronx. And I don't plan on leaving. We just did some renovations to our house. And after we did the renovations, my friend said, "You're really never going to leave." I said, "I'm leaving feet first." That's how I'm leaving. I'm also very happy to say that 6 of my great-grandparents come from Ireland. And some of them arrived in Lower Manhattan, some in Queens, but their descendants found their way to the Bronx. And it's because of that, a guy with the last name Alter can say, "I'm a proud Bronx Irish Catholic." And what I'd like to do is I'd like to dedicate the plaque I'm about to receive to my 6 Irish great-grandparents, the Shelleys, the Smiths, and I'm going to get this right, the Coglins. It's only because of them I can say I hail from County Bronx. I'd like to congratulate my fellow honorees, and everybody have a good day. I'm going to make it a short speech.
Thank you, Jerry, so much for letting us know that Kevin Walter loves to shovel snow. Since, no, you can't change it. Since Kevin lives about 3.5 blocks from my house, Kevin, 1931 Narragansett, please. You or your family members, except your wife, are welcome anytime. My wife is the only person I know who will not consider going to Florida in January or February because she wants to be around, because, Bob, it might snow. I said, but we have neighbors and friends who will remove the snow. Oh, I don't know. I can't be sure. My wife's a wonderful Italian girl from Brooklyn. So she's still adjusting to the Bronx 42 years later. But I want you to know that anybody who lives nearby who loves snow, Kevin, I'll see you next winter. Okay, watch out for the driveways. I'd like now to introduce, to present closing remarks, our president, Nunzio Del Greco.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I just wanted to say thank you again for attending this great luncheon. We have unbelievable honorees. Thank you so much. It was great, inspiring to hear from them. Thank you for coming. Do pick up a copy of the Bronx Business Directory and Resource Guide on your way out, and a copy of the newsletter, and plan on attending our Women of Distinction event luncheon next Friday, and our annual gala on April the 18th. We have some great honorees. Photos taken today will appear in the Bronx Times Reporter, so keep a lookout for that. Will all our honorees come up for a group photo? Thanks again for coming. Thank you.